Well, folks, here's something a little bit different for you, like the meeting of the minds. Dan and I, with Craig Stout and Kent Swanson of ArrowheadPride. How are you, fellas?
Doing great, man. Hey, thanks for having us on.
Peace signs all around.
Yeah, love getting to talk football, beer, everything. This is going to be great.
This is going to be a long one, folks. If you didn't come here for the beer stuff, just wait till the end. I'm drinking Tag 7, so you know it's going to go downhill fast.
Solid choice.
Right? I'm tired. I am just tired. So I don't know where to begin. I don't know what I want. I thought we had one thing on Twitter the other day. I think we might as well just jump into the okay, so there went that. Let's talk about tackles that are going to go beyond 31, especially some kid from Stanford. I want to know what you think, Kent.
Oh, about Walker?
Yeah, come on.
Man, he's like one of the weirdest prospects I think in this entire draft class. Like, because
the whole time. What are we going to do with this?
I know, it's like it's very difficult. Like, it's a tough projection, but like I think something that's interesting just with prospects in general and with these teams, the contrast between the perceptions of, these teams and, guys like us is like, I think for us, like there's less confidence in our ability to project or, confidence that these guys are going to be able to reach their ceilings or develop. Yeah. Like we just have these bigger gaps and perspectives on what we think, a guy is going to be able to achieve. And these guys, maybe sometimes it's a little bit of overconfidence, or maybe they actually have an awesome coaching staff and an awesome position coach that can actually get the most out of these guys. But I think that's where some of these, I think sometimes for us, like projection, looking at like a board, it's like, okay, this is our perspective of a player without situation really taken into consideration at all. And some teams might be able to get more out of a guy like Spencer Brown. Like I understand why a team might want to take Spencer Brown at the end of the first round. Like if the Chiefs do it, I know why they did it. I'm just not confident that he's going to be able to be that guy. And they might be,
Exactly.
I tell you what, I don't want to get bogged down with offensive line because we'll be here all damn day. But he's not my favorite Stanford offensive lineman right now.
Oh, are you a Drew Dahlman guy?
Nice.
I am.
He is a Drew Dahlman guy.
Movement is my thing, especially at center. So that's what I know. Dan's looked at him. You guys can argue. You film guys go ahead and argue. But like, what's your initial one? And then Craig and I'll take over defense in a bit.
So I like Drew Dahlman. I have worry about anchor with him, and I think he's one of those guys like maybe like a Nick Harris last year, or like Drake Jackson. You probably like Drake Jackson too, don't you?
Not as much, no.
Really?
I like Kendrick.
Oh, I do like
Kendrick Green's really good too.
Yeah.
I worry about Dahlman's anchor. Like that's the thing that I'm just like a little bit concerned about with him and some of these other guys. Like I do typically like athletic profile. I like movement skills. I like guys that are able to climb up to the second level. And, I like those guys that are able, like, I think Drew Dahlman is a guy that, he does a good job with body positioning, kind of holding on for dear life a little bit at times, but I like him, and it's kind of like the same with like Drake Jackson. Like I want to put a pretty big grade on Drake Jackson too, just because I like those guys. But it all comes down to like, are we confident, or are they going to be able to hold up, strength wise, anchor wise at the next level, or are there going to be quick interior disruptions because those guys are getting walked back? Sometimes those matchups are really tough for like a Drew Dahlman or Drake Jackson because they're if the right team has the right guy. Thank God, I guess, that all these 350-pound noses are kind of going by the wayside, I guess. But
yeah, I guess so.
I worry about those guys getting quick interior disruption. Like that's my only real concern with those guys. But I understand why a team would like them. And I mean, like zone scheme, outside zone scheme, like Cleveland's perfect fit for all those guys. That's why Nick Harris wound up there last year.
Yep. Dan, any thing that makes you concerned other than the anchor? I guess not. So that's fine. So, I mean, my only thing is like, when I look at all the hubbub about minors going in the top 50, I don't see that either, but Creed, Miners, Dahlman, they all came out in the top 5 of the entire offensive line class and athletic matrix. And that rings for me. And so like, for me, it's about values. Can you get Dahlman at the end of the 3rd or the top of the 4th? Like that's way better value for me than Creed at 40.
No,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially the way that we watched Creed operate at the Senior Bowl. That man got dominated in one-on-ones, and I get that that's a lot different than what he's typically going to see. You know, he's going to get some help from guards and stuff like that at the NFL level. But if you're taking a center top 40, you hope he can hold his own one-on-one. And we saw Creed Humphrey routinely struggle with that in Mobile. I definitely, as a primary grader on Creed, I definitely soured on him because I had a fairly sizable grade on him. We went to Mobile and I had some questions, and I had to go back to the tape after watching that.
Yeah, that's fair. One of the biggest things that jumped out when I was watching Creed was that he reminds me like a way more athletic and smarter rider. He just gets dominated by strength almost all the time. Like he can just be displaced into the backfield. Like we watched the last 2 years of Austin Ryder get displaced from center into the backfield after snap after snap after snap with the run game. So like I can understand liking the mental, especially the mental aspect. The guy's smart and he knows everything. He calls out everything.
Absolutely.
All of
Yes.
that. But again, like I think that Andy Reid's kind of seen maybe this really athletic center who can get pushed around is not the ideal way to go about this. And he tried. He was like, yeah, I really like Austin Ryder. He can do a lot of things athletically, but here we go. And one of the big reasons you drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the first round was because you thought you could get some guys into open space with the zone scheme that you run. And here he's having to run around, guys getting pushed back in the backfield. So it kind of seems like he wants to go a little different direction with the center. Still want some guys that have that athleticism, but can bring a strength aspect to it, because you need to be able to displace guys forward and upfield to get movement in the run game. You have to.
Hallelujah. I'm ready. And can we sign
Just
3 more
feels like
fullbacks
it.
for the love of God?
Come
on. Okay,
Maybe just move Drew Dalman to fullback.
I mean, there you go.
Hey, I'm okay with
Then
putting
you're
Colin
just-
Saunders at fullback, right?
Ooh, there we go. There's an
Oh.
idea.
Mhm.
There's an idea.
All right. I know I'm crazy. That's fine.
I don't think that's crazy at all. He's not going
30, 31's tough. Let me ask you guys. I know what Dan's going to say. Let me ask both of you. Craig, you first. Do they stay at 31 or do they move up, down, or sideways? What do you got?
I don't think it's down because Veach would have to finally move down. I know that they wanted to with Clyde last year, but it's just tough to do at the end of the first round. You got to have a team that falls in love with like a quarterback or something like that to really want to move up. So I do think, oh man, I think they're going to move up. I think they're gonna attack a guy. I think that there's going to be a guy in maybe their upper tier that falls a little bit, that they are a little higher on, that maybe some other teams are, and they may have to get in front of some of these other teams that are offensive line needy, wide receiver needy, something like that. I can see them watching a guy fall and feel the need to move up, even though they've got holes that they need to fill, and that probably hurts some of that. I think that Brett Veach will move up in this draft.
Kent, you were shaking your head.
I just hate the idea of it so
I know
much.
you do.
Because I love this draft class.
Yeah.
I think there's really good players, and like if you're moving up, you're trading one of your top 100 picks.
Uh-huh.
We had this
I want the
conversation like
Chiefs
2
to
months
stick.
ago too.
Yeah, we have this argument all the time.
No, I mean like me and Ken. I remember having this conversation on Twitter like 2 months ago. Like, there's no way they move up, and here we are, 2 weeks away from the draft. And I'm like, you know what? They're gonna move up, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate the idea of
Hate
it.
it.
Like just I don't know. Like, what are they trading up for? Like, I think that's the question. Interestingly enough, I mean, if they're trading up, it's probably like what, like Tevin Jenkins, or are they making an exception for some arm length issues here? Like, are they, they're gonna go grab a guy that maybe has shorter arms? Like that's what's gonna be fascinating about this draft is like how the tackle class works, and like is that I almost wonder if they trade up, it's almost maybe not for a tackle. Like,
That's
sounds
where
weird.
I'm going with it, because I think
I
I talked about this with Ryan a little bit. I think that they're comfortable with their idea of arm length, right? There's guys in this we've talked about Stone Forsythe and Spencer Brown, who they may have targeted in that second round. Okay, let's just say that they do that. So you move up. If you move up, your idea, in my opinion, it's Terrence Marshall. Like, I think that's a guy that they're going to go get, or they're going to go get someone that they think that is not going to fall, like a linebacker. Maybe. I don't know if they want to move up to go.
Let's
get a
not go
linebacker.
there, Dan.
I don't want
Easy
to.
now.
Like, this is almost like it would be like the trading up for Clyde. Like, you want to get a positional value. discussion here. Like that, it's almost like what they would do. But for me, it seems like it's Terrence Marshall. That's just kind of me throwing smoke at they would need a guy to really open up the offense because Sammy did it as well as he could have. But again, he's not on the field. So that's just my thought.
One thing about Terrace, and I think one of the things I'm very fascinated to watch with this draft too is, all the like a Terrace or a Nico Collins, like some of these big bodied athletes that are maybe a little bit underdeveloped. Like, are the Chiefs going out and saying, okay, we're gonna go swing for a guy that maybe isn't quite developed yet. We think can win outside the numbers. We can give him some opportunities to go up and get the football a little bit as he's developing, get him integrated in the offense as an X receiver, backside formation guy. Like I'm curious to see, like you talk about Terrace, you talk like Nico, some of these bigger dudes. I'm fascinated to see if they're involved with it, or Seth Williams, like some of these guys, like a body type, almost like a type.
Yeah. And
I think all those guys are similar types with different skill sets for sure. But I think there are some crossover between guys like that and like a Terrace. Like, it'd be fascinating to see if they're in on one of those types of players.
I said this to a buddy of mine the other day who happens to cover another team in the NFC. And I like Terrace. I think he's really interesting. But I said this, you guys tell me if I'm nuts. He's like that hot chick you dated in college before you got married because you couldn't see the maturation process in front of you. Like, concentration drops piss me off.
Mm-hmm.
No,
they're bad with him. Yeah. They're for real bad with him. That's the part that drives me off of him, honestly. I would much rather target a Rashad Bateman that maybe doesn't have the same sort of like elite high ceiling with that ability to take the top off the defense and everything like that Marshall has. And I know that you can point to a lot of stuff at LSU that Marshall did really well. And I like a lot of the things that Marshall did. But yeah, I'm with you. Like, when I see those, especially downfield concentration drops, it's like, man, I switch off a little bit when I watch guys like that. That's definitely one of my major negatives of a wide receiver. Like, that hurts. That hurts me.
Well, I think you got to worry about blocking too, because like that's like he just looked disinterested blocking from time to time. And like for me personally, like Terrace Marshall, I'd rather go, like I don't love Terrace. Like, he's not a guy I love. But so like if the Chiefs are looking to identify the body type, kind of like what I was talking about, I think I'd rather go with like a Nico Collins at like 63 than go with a Terrace at 31 or a move up for him. Like, that's kind of where I look at it.
I can definitely get that because Nico's one of the most physical players at wide receiver in this draft. And going through the route, at the end of the route, blocking, it doesn't even matter. I like Terrace. It doesn't bother me that he has some concentration drops. Maybe that's just my own thing. I think that's one of the easier things to fix at the next level when I'm looking at receivers going in. But I don't disagree with the premise that the body type. Definitely, I'm 100,000% against Seth Williams, but that's because I think that he's just a blocking receiver and like that's all he does. That's my own thing. But Diami Brown's a guy that I've loved, like the whole process. Yeah. Like, he's one of my highest graded wide receivers. But again, like that's not a guy you're going for at 31, in my opinion. Just if they could,
we'll see.
I'm not going to be mad if they do.
Jalen Rager went first round last year.
He's way better than Rager too.
I know, and he is way better than Rager. That's
I would get it. I would at least understand why. Like, he's a little bit slept on. Like, if Diami Brown goes in the top 40 picks, I'm not even remotely surprised. Like, he's got a lot of ability. I think he's farther along than some of these dudes. He does have the drop issue too. I mean,
he
does.
I'm
not going to argue that, but like, I just want to understand why they made the pick this year. Like, I'm just nervous. So like, I can understand why they would take Diami. I just that's all. I have a very low threshold right now. You can talk to a lot of people.
Kent is not in on any specific player. He's in to find out what the Chiefs are.
Are you in on offense or defense? Find out.
I'm looking at concepts right now.
The mind of Brett Beach is what you're going for. I'm with you. Wide receivers are an interesting one, but I think there's value all through it. So I would like to know, let's see. I know what Dan thinks. Talk to Dan all the time. Ken, Name one guy that it doesn't matter where it is in the draft, but you think can walk in and actually contribute as a rookie. Maybe isn't even a first round guy.
I know who he's going to say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
Yeah. I'm going to go to Canada, and I'm going to go talk about Mike Palmer, because I think he's the guy that's going to earn opportunities early if he gets into Kansas City. I think he's a day 2 guy, because I think he does all the little things well. And Andy Reid so often, I think part of the reason Demarcus Robinson outsnapped McCole Hardman last year is because he did all the little things. He goes and blocks. He, in between the targets that he's receiving, he's doing all the things that the team wants, most of the time for DeMarcus. But Josh Palmer is a guy that he's high football character, and you can tell because, he's going out of his way to cut guys off on the backside of a run play, or, doing a little dirty work in the blocking game. So he's going to be beloved by Dave Tobe, and he's going to earn respect and opportunity from Andy early. And I think, he's got some ability as a pass catcher. Like, I don't want to just diminish that. He's an above the rim player, and his body control is exceptional. Like, if we're talking about bigger bodied receivers, I don't think he's the same athletic freak or the same ceiling as some of the guys we just talked about. But I mean, doing all the little things and being able to win at the catch point, like, I think that's a formula for success for a guy, especially, I think he'll earn opportunities, and just being on the field will get you a chance to have some success.
Well, and I know, I'm guessing Craig's going to agree with me here. He stands out to me for one reason, because he beat out my CB1 at Alabama, and that means something. So talk to me, Craig.
He took it to Surtain. He really did take it to Surtain in that. I really like Josh Palmer. My guy, my wide receiver that I'm taking in day 2 of the draft is Tylan Wallace. And I don't know that he's going to be able to win in the same way that he did at Oklahoma State in the NFL, because he was able to stack, a lot of the Big 12 CBs really well. He's really, really good at the catch point. And my goodness, the man has a dog mentality. Like, that ball is his. That block is his, that route is his, and he's going to let you know the entire time. I love watching him play football. I love watching the way that he approaches everything. I think coaches do as well. We saw it. He was down there in Mobile, and there was couple press drills that some guys decided they were going to give a little extracurriculars, because Tylan's a very physical dude. Keith Taylor had to walk away with his head down after a couple of them, because Tylan just he let him know, and just completely dominated him in the rep. Like, he's just one of those guys that's bringing it at every single level, in practice, in the games, everything like that. He is a smaller guy. He's not super athletic. Again, I don't know if he's going to win that way in the NFL, but I want that guy on my team for a lot of different reasons. And I'm going to hope that he progresses and is able to do some of the things that he does at Oklahoma State.
I hope he does too. But Dan, I got to say, I'm concerned about the injury history, and quite frankly, with his brother. I don't blow that off. But Dan, I know you had comments on him. Where are you on Tylan?
So Tylan is one of those guys. We talked with Nate Tice about this. Like, he just seems like he's going to come in and be a really good slot receiver for a really, really long time. Like, he's just going to find ways to get the ball and do some things with it. I really don't like the fact that he can just give in to press coverage. Like, I've seen him just like get no movement off the offensive line because of press coverage. Like, that bothers me. It does. I think that his injury did take away some of his burst. It looked, from watching his 2018 film and watching 2020, he does not have the exact same burst twitchiness that he did. So that does bother me. But again, he's going to be definitely a good possession guy that you can still throw him the ball. And like Craig said, he's just going to go get it. He's going to find a way to go get the football. And if I were to say anything to Andy Reid, it would be to go get a wide receiver that can do something like that, because we all know that he refuses to do anything remotely close to throwing the football up and letting a receiver go get it. No, that's not possible. That's not allowed. So, I mean, it's such a part of the game that I want them to do more of. And hopefully with Andy realizing that maybe some of his ideas in the offensive line don't always work out with the athleticism part, maybe it'll stretch into some of the scheming. Let Kelsey go get the football a little bit. Let Pringle go get the football a little bit. Do more with anybody. Maybe draft Nico Collins. Let him do it. I mean, it doesn't matter. Just let him do something like that.
That brings me to the other position that frustrates the crap out of me, and that is this tight end class. Like, I don't think tight end 2 is extremely important, but if Travis, like, goes out dancing and pulls a hamstring, like, what are they going to do? There's nobody over the middle. I know, right? So, like, is there anybody that stood out to you guys in all your film work that maybe could do something similar and give him a weapon of some kind?
Well, I mean, like as a Travis type, I mean, Brevin Jordan, I guess, like Kyle Pitts is gone. I guess Brevin Jordan has the best chance of being a Y ISO type guy, but I don't really think that there is that kind of guy here that you're overly excited about. I'm not really all like Brevin Jordan. I think, if his athletic testing was able to be part of our draft rankings, he would have fallen pretty hard.
Yep.
But that's another story.
Different story.
Yeah,
Brevin Jordan, I think he's got some ability with the ball in his hands. He's a fluid mover, and he's got some route running ability. But like as a direct replacement for Travis, there's not a ton of those guys. I'd rather just go get Tommy Tremble and see what happens.
Wham!
Give me Jacob Harris. I don't care.
I was just gonna say, like, the only guy that I'm excited about for the tight ends is a wide receiver.
Right.
Hey, I think there's a couple. There might be a couple like that.
I like the idea, Tommy, though, and that brings me back to a different conversation, like the evolution of now you've invested in Clyde, and quite frankly, I think an H role is really the thing that I think you might be able to twist this offense in a new direction. Do you guys like that concept, or is that just spitting in the wind?
You can go, Craig. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll let you go first.
I'll take it from the offensive guy here.
See?
No, I love that. I think that you've seen defenses have shifted a lot lighter personnel. They're trying to play more dime. They're trying to play, lighter nickels, not Spagnuolo necessarily. He's still playing that Buffalo. But I do think that you're seeing a lot of defenses that aren't gearing up to have to be able to protect against 12 personnel as much. Now, I don't want to take another dynamic weapon off the field to try and play another heavier tight end. So yes, a guy like that you can use as an H-back. We loved John Lovett. Like I thought that he made a ton of sense in the backfield for the Chiefs. I think that that's a situation where if you can get another dynamic enough weapon, you're going to force defensive coordinators to have to make a decision. And they're going to have to make a decision because we know they're going to play the safety over the top to keep Tyreek Hill in check. We know that they've got to account for Kelsey. But if you've got another guy that can block and be an actual weapon, a motion man up front there, then all of a sudden you create problems when they do run, when they do have to go off of some of this play action passing. I do think that that's a little bit against Andy Reid's types, but we've seen him evolve. So I do think that they could go to something like that, and I'd support it. I really would.
And I think Tommy the player, like involving Tommy Tremble the player, like it's not just and Craig just did a really great job outlining the idea. And, again, hey, makes sense to me. That's all I care about, right? But no, but I mean, just like Tommy Tremble, the player himself, too, getting this guy opportunities and putting him in a situation to succeed. I think getting him to use as an H-back, as an inline guy. I still think he can be a great inline blocker. I think he is. I think he's an outstanding blocker wherever you put him. You want to put him in the backfield. You want to line him up as a true Y. Whatever you want to do with him, I think he's going to be a really quality blocker. I think that's why some people tried to, maybe not. George Kittle comps isn't the right word, but some Kittle in his game. Right. Yeah. He's got some of that Kittle to him as a blocker, but man, I think the upside from him as a receiver is untapped. And I think he's a guy that could be he could get a lot of favorable matchups. And I think that's something that could be really fascinating with the rest of this offense as it's currently constructed. I think it'd be 12 personnel would be nasty.
It's another man beater in heavy personnel. Like that's what you're looking for.
Yep.
Especially and the personnel conflict that you're creating. How are you dealing with that? If they're it's how are you dealing with that? Like how are you treating it?
I think that really has to be a next evolution to Andy Reid's offense, because we just saw this past season them kind of force the 3-by-1. They forced it down defenses' throats, and now we're kind of seeing they're just going to sit back in coverage and be like, okay, do what you got to do. And he didn't really want to run the football that much in that aspect. So you have to start playing, like Craig was pointing out, with the dynamics of the defense and the personnel. Make them make a decision. If you want to run the football, show them you can run the football whenever you want to. And then if you end up taking one of those guys in to help stop the run, then you can wide them out and throw the football. So they got to start doing something. They have to.
I think that's going to be the key to the evolution that we're going to see, whether it's the run more or it's incorporating the H. Especially, I'd like Trimble as well, but I think there's a couple of other guys that can do that job too.
Sure.
Especially when you look at, hey, you can line up in the H and now go split out. Let's really try to drag a linebacker out to the edges. Like that's what I'm looking for. And the linebacker group is different. And so all of you fantasy types, you can tune out now because we're going to get to the real side of the ball.
The real side.
Have fun, kid.
Like, I'm out.
I'll talk to you later, buddy.
And we won't even go linebacker first because I think we should start in the trenches because I think this is a really unique group. And I think nobody highlights that more than Greg Rousseau, who I actually ran all the numbers, including production athleticism, as both a tackle and an end. I feel like that's something that Spags wants to do, and it's a type. I think he could fall to 31. Is that even an option, Craig, to go as a front four guy?
Oh yeah, I think it's a major option. I mean, I am not necessarily as confident in the option across from Frank Clark as maybe the Chiefs might be. I think that they're going to be fine without it, but I would like to have another key ingredient over there. And I'm also not super confident with Frank Clark's injuries right now. I think that we're seeing that last year he definitely looked a little bit slower. He was still effective, but it wasn't the same level that we've seen in the past. So the Chiefs made it a point not to restructure Frank Clark's contract at the time of this recording, which would alleviate some cap room next year if they needed to move on. All of those things line up to say, if you draft a defensive end, he's going to play a lot this year, and it may offer you some flexibility next year. And like you said, Gregory Rousseau, a guy that can play outside, has the length, the ability to stack the edge, can play the run really well along the outside, and then be able to kick inside and rush from there on passing down so that they can move some lighter defensive ends, maybe some guys that are a little less coveted because they don't play on base downs. You can play them outside in the dime and have a really effective rush. He makes a ton of sense. Bookie Basham makes a ton of sense. There's Peyton Turner. Everybody, there are so many defensive ends in this class that fit the Spags archetypes really, really well this year. Jason Owa does as well. I shouldn't have left out one of my favorites here. So there's a lot of guys that make sense. So if they really want to target a guy with an elite athletic profile and has that kind of Spagsy length, they have the capability to do that in round one for sure.
Do you like Deo in the fourth?
Oh, I love Deo. Deo is one of my favorite players in this class that's slept on. That right? Man, oh my goodness. He's got explosion. He's got length. I've said this before on our podcast. He had a 5-play stretch against Mississippi State where he lined up as a zero tech and he beat the center 5 different ways. He set up a pass rush move. He set up the plan. He spun, he bulled, he push-pulled. He was able to knife and rip through. He just absolutely dominated at the point there. And then he was good as a defensive end as well. Right. So, I mean, I think that he's got a lot of people that are going to like him in the NFL. It's just that torn Achilles is going to make him fall. I think he was going to be a day 2 guy comfortably.
We're probably all happy with him at 63.
Honestly,
without the injury,
without the injury, I think we're all probably pretty happy about him at 63, right? Like Craig outlined it perfectly. This guy is like, he's built to be a Steve Spagnuolo defensive end, a versatile piece that can play and kick inside along the interior. I mean, there's a lot to like about this dude.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And in the fourth, the Achilles doesn't bother me at all. I can wait on it. I just can't see day 2 is my only problem.
I know. Yeah.
It's the feedback I get from everybody.
Right.
For sure. But again, that goes back to rookie contract and production. And I would get it. Like, I'd talk myself into that one, even though I wouldn't love the fact that you're probably not getting much out of him in year 1.
If you're grabbing Deo, like maybe double dip. Mm-hmm. Just go grab a guy that maybe you can get some production this year, maybe get a little bit of help because you're not overly confident that he's going to be able to. But I mean, I guess they've got 2 guys coming off an Achilles, right? Because Taco Charlton's just coming off of it. True. So I don't know how they feel about that either, though. So who knows?
Right?
I don't know. That's something that I've talked myself into a lot. I feel like there's so much Spags type of defensive ends in this draft class that they might just go 1-2 like on day 3 and just kind of put some bodies there with, because I've said a lot of how I think that they're more comfortable with who they currently have, being Tim Ward, because I think that they're way higher on him than a lot of fans are, which, that's, we're not going to actually talk about the depth of the actual edge class or edge position on the roster, but I think that they're more comfortable with who they have than a lot of fans are. And I think that you can do something specifically like add, like we talked about Deo, you could do a bunch of different types in this day 3 class of edge that really can kind of take away a lot of the depth issues that they've had, and maybe add some different elements. Janoris Robertson's a guy who's been flying up draft boards lately that I've seen. I love him, and I think that he's a guy who initially would have been a day 3 guy. Maybe now he's crept up into round 3-ish area, but I love him personally.
I could see it.
I must have been in a bad mood when I graded him. I feel bad about where he wound up. I really do. I genuinely feel bad about how low I had him in the draft guide because I was the primary guy. I'll own it. I was just in a bad mood. I must have got done just watching some bad edges or something like that. I don't know. But
he rushed Rashad Weaver and Patrick Jones back to back and was like, "This is the same guy."
I think like right now, if you told me, I think I'd probably we have both those guys you just mentioned higher than Janarius Robinson in our board right now. I think I'd probably rather have Janarius Robinson, especially after seeing some of the athletic testing way out. Like that's really been the hard thing this year is like athletic testing, not getting that earlier than we normally do. As early as we normally do, is really throwing some things off. Because I think Janarius Robinson probably would have settled a little bit higher in our big board.
It has totally screwed my entire process.
Oh, I'm sure.
I can only imagine, man.
Like, folks, if you want an opinion on a running back or a tight end, I don't have any for you. I ain't looking at them. I ain't watching them. It's just not going to happen. So
I get it.
But like at the end of the day, it is about getting somebody that could fit the mold, right? And so let's move on from the D line, because they're not going interior, I don't think, unless it's a day 3 guy that they really feel has upside. But let's talk about Kent's favorite and what has to happen at the linebacker level.
I just want like a 15-minute spot of him talking about Nick Bolton. That's all.
Right? Oh my God.
What?
My big thing is I keep waiting and I keep hoping that Matt House is going to have some influence and actually get Spags to go towards the linebacker that they can use as the 5th rusher instead of sending DBs. I want somebody that can attack from the linebacker level. I don't think that's going to happen. You guys don't see that happening either, do you?
No, I don't. I just Spagnuolo loved to send those linebackers in New York. And then since then, nah, he's definitely leaned a lot more on his slots, a lot more on his safeties. And part of that's because he's playing a lot more sub packages than he was, early on in New York when it was that kind of havoc that he was wreaking there. But I don't, unless they get a special blitzer like a Micah Parsons or something like that. If somehow he fell to the bottom, then all of a sudden you're maybe seeing him get to use it a little bit more.
I'm more interested in seeing a coverage player. I just wonder if Steve.
Oh, that's not going to happen.
We know that's not going to happen either. But like you look at the last 2 Super Bowls, he's seen some athletic linebackers that can really create problems and mitigate some of the mismatches that have presented themselves in the biggest games. Like, I mean, Fred Warner, Levante David, both great coverage players. Does Steve Spagnuolo start looking and go, you know what? Maybe Ben Neiman's not the solution here. I don't know.
What about his brother?
Oh, Nick.
No, that's okay.
You can't do it. Out of principle.
I got to tell you guys this, and Kent, you tell me if I'm wrong. My favorite NDSU prospect is Jibril Cox.
I mean, I get it entirely. And I think all those guys are pretty close for me. Like, just
nothing against.
Nothing against all these guys. They're both. I mean, Jibril Cox, he's fun, man, and it's a local kid. He's got some KC ties here. I mean, I believe he was like miles from the stadium for part of his life, and
like 3, right?
No, like coverage ability for sure. Like, he's definitely a guy, and I think he wound up playing or testing and showing out a little bit denser at his pro day, if I remember correctly, which is, I don't
think he ran anything yet. He's going on the 26th as a
Did he weigh in?
He did weigh in. Yeah. I'd have to pull that up.
I'm going to go look right now.
Do that.
But I think he's playing. I think he played a little bit bigger at the Senior Bowl, a little bit bigger last time he weighed in. I thought he did, but.
And you guys were there. What was the Senior Bowl takeaways, Craig?
He was him and Derek Barnes were pretty clearly the best two coverage linebackers that were there. Jibril just moves differently than everybody else. I mean, he really does. He is huge, like very long, and then you see him get up and it's not necessarily just long striding. There's explosion there. Like you actually see that first couple steps. He does move really, really well. He mirrored guys in some of those one-on-one drills that are way slanted towards the offense. You know, they're two-way goes out of the backfield with no routes around him for him to diagnose and have to, you know, play off of it. But he was able to stay in phase with some of those running backs that were there. He looked good. Like he really did look good doing that. That's clearly his best attribute right now. A super athlete, like makes a ton of sense if they're going to add a coverage linebacker. I'm just not holding my breath right now as the guy who really, really wants them to add a coverage linebacker. Really wants them to.
Two of us.
Yeah.
I think that's all of us, really.
Yeah.
Well, but Dan, you had a good point the other day, and I want to mention this too. The only problem that I have with him on this roster is that I don't see either he or Willie as a replacement for Hitch. Somebody's got to call the defense. Somebody's got to lead the defense. And those guys got to flow and be on their own. But that doesn't solve the problem in my estimation. So what do you do?
Jibril's not a guy against the run. Like, okay, so he played he was at 233 in the Senior Bowl. And I think the good thing about Jibril Cox is he doesn't play like a 233-pound linebacker in coverage. The bad thing about Jibril Cox is he doesn't play like a 233-pound linebacker against the run. I mean, I think that's the reality of the situation from him. And like, you're right, he's not what you want, and maybe he's the strongest guy against the run. And we know Steve Spagnuolo values that. So that's where Derek Barnes, you know, Craig mentioned Derek Barnes a second ago as a guy that was surprising in coverage, and he's played as, you know, I think he's played as a rush player for a while. He's played in coverage, and he showed out in coverage in the Senior Bowl. He might be able to mic, like he might be able to mic moving forward. Part of his projection and his, you know, outlook here in the future. Maybe Derek Barnes is a guy that can mic down the road.
He can mic. He can definitely mic. He mic'd for Purdue last year. He played at defensive end the year before and looked good as a defensive end. So he's a guy that, and kicked out in the slot sometimes to cover in 2019. So a guy that has the kind of versatility that Spagnuolo likes could play it as a Sam in year one as you kind of diagnosed things, get him to learn the scheme and be able to put him on the field. And then if you need to replace Anthony Hitchens, he's a guy that makes some sense. Also tested really well, surprisingly well. Kept dropping weight. I think he played at about 260 last year. So I think him dropping to about 233 and moving as well as he did, you have to get a little excited about him.
I try not to get overly excited about anything.
Hey, that's the life of being a Chiefs fan right now,
right?
You know?
And that said, it's time for beer number 2. Dan, ask the question you want to ask about the corners, because these guys, I can't decide. I change them every other week. I swear to God.
Well, the thing about the corner position is that, like, there's that top 4 that clearly that's the top 4. And then for me, it kind of levels out a little bit. But what do you guys think is the best guy out of that second crop? Because I have one guy in mind, and I'm interested to see what you think, because I think the corner is a spot where the Chiefs may have some interest on day 2. So what do you guys think about that?
If we're talking, I'll give you 2. If we're talking boundary guys, Ifitu Melifonwu is a guy that makes a lot of sense, that I think played in a scheme that is going to be very similar to what Spagnuolo wants, has the physicality that Spagnuolo wants, and has the ball skills. So I think that he makes a lot of sense. I think he's going to go a little bit higher than everybody's kind of making it out to be, because guys like Noah Igbenogany went round 1 last year. The NFL likes to gamble on long athletic corners, especially early. So if he's still available, I'm running to the podium. But a slot guy, I think, that makes a lot of sense is Elijah Molden out of Washington. The Chiefs were interested in Kwan Williams earlier this year. I think that would kind of signal that maybe they're comfortable with moving L'Jarius Sneed outside if they need to. So if they're looking for slot guys, Elijah Molden is the very definition of a Spag slot corner. He's physical. He's really smart. He's got a ridiculous zone coverage ability to just sink and find the gaps and read routes and read the quarterback's eyes. So I think that he would fit in a lot of the ways that Tyrann Mathieu did when he was playing the slot corner. I think you have two guys on the field that can really kind of patrol the middle and take stuff away. He's probably going to be there around the 63 area because he did not test well. Like he will struggle to run deep, but you're not going to have him running deep. You're going to have him play underneath a lot more. So I like him a lot.
I love that.
That's my only concern, especially when you won't test agility drills. You make me nervous. Okay.
Just
you and me both. Yep.
And I know Dan Jeremiah wants to put him at nickel. I don't. I see them going to a double robber setup and let him roam the middle and do what he does and be instinctual. And that's what I'm looking for. I like him a lot, but I think 63 is probably the most interesting spot for him. All the other guys, Benjamin St. Juste has been climbing lately.
Yeah.
I like his mentality. I like the way he goes about it. He's just a bit raw for me to take in the second, in my opinion. Am I out of whack here?
Can I go, Craig?
Oh yeah, this is your guy. Talk.
I love that.
I don't even tell you guys anymore. I just want to see who's going to go first.
Who's dealing it out? I think, but probably because we've been around each other the last 3 months so much, he just knew I wanted to talk about Benjamin St. Juste. Like, I shouldn't have even said anything. I should have just started going. No, I think 63 is a little bit too rich for me, and I'm a guy that's a really big fan of Benjamin St. Juste. I think he's really, if you're going to talk about some of these big outside corners that can operate on a linear plane, I think he's I think he's really good value on, late day two. If the Chiefs took him at 94, I'd be more than happy to grab him. He's a guy I thought had a really good Senior Bowl, and they were working on some bag drills before one of the practices, and watching him engage with the bag with his punch, it was louder than anybody in the entire group. I mean, Keith Taylor looked like me trying to get out there, trying to punch the bag. He actually has the same arm.
This is the Dunk on Keith Taylor podcast.
I guess so.
My goodness.
Don't ask us about him, but he's got the same arm length as me too, which is surprising because he's like 6'3". But Benjamin St. Juste, back to him. I liked the way he used his length. Some guys don't necessarily always use it to the to their best of their abilities, but good initial punch. If you're getting a guy that the Chiefs don't ask a lot of their cornerbacks, operate on that linear plane, be physical at the line of scrimmage, I think that's a guy that can operate within this scheme extremely well. And, maybe not 63. I don't know if I'm all the way there at 63. And this is coming from a big fan. But 94, I'd be thrilled.
Yeah, I put him as a high fit in the guide. Like, I think he makes a lot of sense for the Chiefs. He's going to be a little bit limited with his long speed, and that showed up in testing. He's not crazy explosive either. And like you said, Ryan, he's raw. Like, he needs some work. But that length, that honestly, that agility, like his agilities were good. So I mean, I think that you've got the ability to mirror and match from a press scheme. Spagnuolo wants to be a little more physical on the outside, play more press. Benjamin St. Juste is a guy that gets on the field quicker than maybe some other guys.
I would generally agree with that too. And Craig will finish his thought when he comes back. Dan, give me a DB. I was thinking corner, but it doesn't have to be. Give me a DB you like.
It's going to be despite being raw. So yeah,
a day 3 guy. Because I don't think they're going to spend 94. I honestly don't. Yeah. But if they did, I'm fine with that. But if they don't, day 3 guy that you liked it, maybe we can all toss around and not beat up like he's Keith Taylor. And Keith, I like you. I like you.
I like Keith too.
Just play cover 3 and you'll be fine. It's okay.
Yeah, I feel like Trill Williams is a guy that gets a lot of. Also, the physical aspect, he's a bit bigger, almost 200 pounds, a 6'2". He's also got that length too. So he plays well in his zone from what I saw. He could definitely get his foot down and go. Like, he's got all of the aspects that really kind of resemble what Spags wants to do at corner, at least on the boundary. And he just has that mold. So he's a guy I've kind of locked in for around the fourth round, because they have 2 4th-round picks because of that comp pick. So he's definitely a guy that I looked at, and Syracuse corners just kind of bounced to me. Like, they just have off the screen stuff that just kind of takes your eye, and you're like, wow, they do this really well, and they get after the ball too. So he's definitely a guy that I've locked in the earlier day three, something that fits what the Chiefs want to do from what we all seen.
Yeah, and I mean Andre Sisco in that secondary as well also bounces off the screen. Like that was a really good secondary out there in Syracuse. Yeah.
I want to get your guys' opinion. I know what Dan's is, but we'll start with Kent because this guy's like Ben. The guy that I'm really intrigued by, and I don't care where you line him up. I like this whole, we don't know what he's going to do on any given down. Israel Mukwamu is a guy that I want to take and turn to a safety. All right. I knew you were going to go there. We'll let Kent talk for a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, this dude is a massive human being. I mean, he's a rare athlete too. I mean, for that kind of size, like I think that profile is really impressive. And I don't know what you want to do with him. I think he would make a lot of sense operating outside as a big press corner with some length and stuff. I mean, I think he's got some decent ball skills too. I think he's shown. But I mean, I'm not opposed to adding him. I don't know about the valuations. I think his value, I think he might go in a little bit higher than I want him to, just because I think that people are going to be intrigued by the profile.
I'm on the 5th. Is that too early, Craig?
No, that's not too early for him. I think that's actually a good spot for him. He's got some injuries. He opted out at the same time that JC Horn did in South Carolina. Kent said decent ball skills. This man has the best ball skills of any cornerback in the class. Like multiple leaping, diving to the ground, one-handed interceptions. Like I love Israel Mukaamu. I really do. I'm probably higher on him than a lot of people just because I do fall for those athletic, long, physical guys that can win at the catch point, make those tide turning plays. I think you could play him a little bit of everywhere. So, I mean, even though he's playing on the boundary, there's a lot of stuff that you can move him around against some 3x1s with some Y ISO looks, stuff like that, where he's actually kicking over into the slot. Spagnuolo does that a lot with his boundary guys. All of a sudden, you've got a guy that can zone off to the deep safety and you can play some robber coverages underneath him and feel very comfortable with it. I think it gives you a little extra flexibility. It's just injuries are going to be the big thing with him. If you can clear that with him, then yeah, I think he makes a lot of sense on day 3.
Okay, well, 2 of us will be happy when he ends up again.
Yes.
Anyway, that's good enough for me.
I don't have anything against him.
Right?
I'm not out here standing for no, not this guy, not this guy.
I'll understand it.
Yeah.
Kent's right. We can understand just about anything at this point. Whatever you want to do.
My threshold right now is so low. I'm so beat up. Breland Speaks has destroyed me.
The bar is at your ankles.
And McCall Hardman destroyed me. So.
All right. The last thing that we got to cover is obviously the back of the defense. I was a little disappointed that it took Juan that long to kind of round back into shape, in my opinion. But I think that he kind of got there. I'm still optimistic about his 3rd season. But I want him to have a partner. I wanted them to be able to go to split safety when they want to. And I'm looking for somebody with a little bit more range to let Tyron come underneath a little bit more. But it doesn't seem like it's a class for that. Maybe I'm missing it. I don't know. I don't see anybody that screams that to me. Is there a safety, Craig, that stood out to you? And then, Dan, you're going to have to rebut that.
Oh man, not really. The guys that are capable of doing that kind of stuff are pretty small, and I just don't know if Spagnuolo is going to want 2 smaller deep safeties. I love our Darius Washington. I think he's got the range out back there, regardless of what his testing said, because that was truly awful testing. But I think that he showed that he had the range back there. He didn't look like he moved that much different than Trevon Moehrig, who is a freak athlete. So I think that he would make sense as a deeper guy, especially in some of those split roles. Juan obviously is the guy that's going to be able to go up and get the ball a little bit better than the 5'7", 5'8" guy that Ardarius Washington is. But I mean, some of those guys that are late, a lot of this group is pretty slow. Like it's not a particularly rangy safety class, which is Steve Spagnuolo likes split safeties back there. So I think that you can still find value in day 3. I just don't love a lot of these later safety prospects.
I do have one.
Go. Yeah.
Are we just gonna hang out in the Syracuse backfield this whole time?
Evidently.
I feel bad. Like Andre Cisco, I think range instincts, ball skills. Like I think he's a guy that if you're operating from if you want him operating from a deep alignment, like he's another guy. Uber ball production. I kind of felt a little bit bad about where I had him initially too, and I think I wound up a little bit higher on him when it was all said and done. I think again, just bad mood. But yeah, I mean, I think that guy. I mean, some of the stuff that he was able to do, and I think he's a really instinctual player from that back. And when he's getting to operate where he's reading the field, he's reading concepts. I think he's exceptional from a deep alignment. I think he's a really good football player.
I like him too. It concerns me that his production fell because I think he started believing his hype a little bit more and he over pursued a couple of things. And I like him as split.
Aggressive.
I don't like him single high.
Very aggressive. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think he got a little bit full of himself, but that's okay. He's a good DB, right? I mean, hey,
Right.
if you're not going to be confident, don't go out on the field. But
Right.
at the same time, I want to throw one out. And Dan, I'm going to start with you because I think you're going to yell at me. But the guy, I keep thinking about future, right? We saw for a couple of years, Brett Veach was like drafting a couple of years ahead, right? Well, Dan Sorensen's not going to be here forever. I want to find somebody that can do what they want. It's pretty rare to find somebody that they feel comfortable in the box and up high, right? Okay, Craig's going to yell at me about this.
I think I know what he's going to say too.
No,
so.
I think I agree with you. Yeah.
Folks, my name's Ryan. I like beer, and I like Jacoby Stevens.
Yep,
And
I knew he was going to say it. Yes! Bring Jacoby Stevens to Kansas City.
Okay, so I'm not dumb, huh?
No, that's he kind of fits almost exactly what he does, except he's bigger and he's better in almost every way. And that's exactly what you want because he's going to come down. He's coming downhill to get in the run game. He's going to come down and he's got no fear to come down there. Like 6'2", 230-ish pounds. Like the guy's a linebacker playing safety.
Yeah. And he played linebacker in Mobile. Like they had him playing just linebacker in Mobile. Jacoby Stevens is the first guy that I watched in this entire process and can attest to this, that I immediately got done watching a game and I went, okay, that's my guy. Like I'm done. We don't need to watch anything more. I love Jacoby Stevens because he does. He lines up as single high, which I don't think he has the range at the NFL level, but he did line up at single high. He lined up at split safety. He lined up at linebacker. He lined up in the slot. Like everything that Dan Sorensen does, like you guys both just mentioned, Jacoby Stevens also does, and he'll do it cheaper, and he may do it a little bit better. Certainly, eventually, as he grows into that role. I just don't think he didn't have elite athleticism, and I think there's a lot of people that think he might go into day 3. And if Jacoby Stevens is my round 4 pick, you guys are going to see a different level of excitement out of me than you ever have on any of our draft picks.
Back away from the camera.
Pants. Yeah, he
won't be wearing pants. You're right.
Don't back away from the camera then.
Jacoby has gone by Jacobe in our DMs for the last 3 months because this is Craig's guy. And
3 months.
I actually think he doesn't have the greatest athletic profile, but I actually think he showed a competent enough athletic profile for a man his size. I think you could get away with him in a split field alignment. Like I think he could survive there
for sure.
It's up here. It's the IQ. Yeah,
exactly. So I mean, he wasn't like I think he ran 4'6", 240, but 6'1", 212. It's not the most elite, athletic, 40-yard dash or anything like that, but he showed really good explosive numbers. And I don't think he's a bad athlete. I think he did enough. I don't think he's going to be there on day 4 or on day 3. I think he's ultimately going to be, gone on day 2. So rest in peace, Craig's dream.
I'll tell you this. I generally look at the athleticism first, but in this case, he screams to me because of his production. When you put it all together, one of the things that I do tally is not just the pass, deflections and interceptions. It's got to be the whole 9 yards if you're going to play that position. And he's right at the top of that rating for this entire draft class. I'll never get him because I said it. Sorry, Craig. I jinxed the whole damn thing. But
no. I jinxed it by liking him. The safety that I've been the highest on amongst us every single year that we've done the draft guide has gone to Indianapolis. It was Kari Willis first. It was Julian Blackman last year. So it's going to be Jacoby Stevens in Indianapolis this next year.
End up with Hamza Nesruddin.
See, Chris is still listening. It doesn't matter where he is. He's still listening. Good Lord. All right. So, folks, that's our thoughts on this draft class. We're going to switch over and start talking about something completely different. So, guys, thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more and subscribe to RGR Football.